I know you're an article about some takeaways, and we'll get to the game itself, but Myles Garrett kind of within reach, and and the other thing that we played this sound from Ross Tucker, they haven't been in the lead where he could really just get after the quarterback. It makes it even that more impressive that he's doing it on a team that's struggling so mightily on the offensive side of the ball.
There's no doubt about that. When his yesterday's game went on, they're down 14-0, and I start to think, man, is Myles going to get any chances here? Because there weren't a lot early, but he doesn't need a lot. He's been that good. And so he gets, there's a third down finally in the red zone. He goes through two guys and gets Caleb Williams. He gets one gets a half in the second half to pull him so close to the record. It's truly remarkable, the season he has had. I would say the circumstances have not lined up for Myles to have this kind of record-breaking year. He's just done it on pure talent and relentless effort. And he's gotten help. The coverage has been good, and his defensive line has helped. But you're right. When we see the huge sack games, and Myles had one, I want to say 2021 against the Bears. The Browns were up early. You got a rookie quarterback who's throwing a bunch, and he got 4.5 sacks. There hasn't been that. Even when he got the 5 against the Patriots were winning all game. They just kept dropping back Drake May, and he kept getting to him. So, I know we've talked and written about Myles a bunch, but I just don't know if we're still doing him justice for the type of year he's having.
The other one he had is bad look, and it's been a recurring thing. There's no other way to say it. They're a mess.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I know his fans, and I'm sure inside the building, and even Kevin Stefanski, right? When you see the early penalties, and you can look at each one and explain it, and it's a rookie Harold Fannin, rocks in his stance, and that's a false start. And then Fannin doesn't get off the field when it's a different personnel package, and there's 12 men on the field. And then I think they take a delay of game because of the wristband. So, you can explain each one, but it's still a terrible look when you have 3 penalties on offense before you run 4 offensive plays. The special teams starts the game for the second straight week in the umpteenth time this year by giving up a big return. And all of a sudden, Chicago's, I think it was a 47, so they're right by midfield, and it shortens the field. And then the Browns defense gets a stop, but they get pinned inside the 1, and then they're punting, and Chicago takes over at the 40. And that's just a tough spot to put the defense in. So my point is the penalties, the issues on offense, not scoring a touchdown, and then the big issues on special teams. We've seen it all year, and the fact that it's still happening, it's frustrating for everyone, and it's not the sign of progress that you would hope to see throughout the season.
Without question. I'm going to combine the other two because I think they're related. Ups and downs, and what a mess. And, I looked at all of the guys on the injury report Friday, and I was like, man, this is not a great spot to put your rookie quarterback in. And it kind of played out that way.
It did, but I think you can – I'm not saying Shadur got the help that he needed because the Jerry Jeudy drop that turns – or touchdown that turns into interception is not Shadur Sanders' fault. I thought there were a couple other balls that went off receivers' hands. The protection was, I thought, hit or miss because he had time, but he was also under pressure a good chunk of the day. So, in the run game was no good at all. So, it's not like everything was in Shadur Sanders' favor. However, I do think you can evaluate him separately. And you can look at the decisions on plays and the decisions on interceptions, the throws, whether they're good, the 2 deep ones to Bond. I think it was Acho mentioned the comeback to Jeudy on the sideline was a good play. He had a couple of good scrambles. You can look at those and evaluate them, just like you can look at a couple throws didn't come out of his hand clean, including that the third interception, but the second one to Fannin on that corner route. Probably not a great decision. The ball also didn't come out of his hand super clean. So, those aren't because of other people. Those are Shadur Sanders' decisions and his throws. So I think you can acknowledge that it's not ideal circumstances, just like they weren't for Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel, but still point out the pluses and minuses of his performance.
Yeah, he's got to learn not to try to make the big play every play. The other thing though, that offensive line, and we talked ad nauseum. It's going back to Stefanski's system gonna mean the line is at least acceptable? Well, there's still 3 games left, but I think we can say that's a resounding no, it's not.
Yeah, and that's to me one of the mysteries about the season. They went back to some of the stuff Stefanski did. I don't think they ever went full throttle or full bore on the wide zone, heavy play action like you see from San Francisco, and we saw a couple weeks ago from what Kyle Shanahan does. And I don't know if that's because they look at the offensive line and says it's not young enough or athletic enough to do that anymore. But they just didn't run those kind of plays with the same regularity that they have. And whether it's just bad luck because the line's been decimated by injuries, or poor planning because there are a bunch of old guys on the line and guys with injury history, and you can only get so much depth. But the line hasn't been good enough throughout the year, whether it's pass protection or run blocking consistently. And, it's hard for me to blame the quarterback for that. And it's even hard for me to blame the coach because you can only play the 5 guys that are healthy and available to you.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. That one goes up, as does the wide receiving.